Let's talk about packaging. Now, I can talk all the live long day about packaging. I'm kind of obsessed with it. But what I want to talk to you about is my kind of packaging that I have done over the years. And I'm going to give you also an example from a client who I designed a fragrance for her and then also collaborated with one of my business partners in the UAE for the packaging, for the labeling, for the bottles, and for the boxes. And I will try to keep it brief, but you'll get the gist when you have a look at the images. Now, the first image I'm going to show you is actually an improvement upon the what I actually did before, and it's a classic example of when you kind of DIY it when it comes to the packaging. Now, the bottles, the black bottles, actually violet glass bottles, are Miron bottles made in Switzerland. I deal with them directly in the Netherlands, and they're called Miron, Miron. Great brand, not cheap, not too expensive either. But what the glass does, it actually protects the ingredients from all the spectrums of light that can actually reduce the shelf life of your product. But if you look at the labels, I got these printed from a professional company in Dubai. So I got the artwork done and I hired a designer off this website called Fiverr. And he was from Serbia. Great guy, only charged me $150 for the design of the logo. And then I got him to design the labels as well. And this is when I rebranded from Nightingales into by Melanie Jane. So this is a classic example of me doing it myself, but not doing the labels myself. I got them professionally printed, so they had like gold foiling on them, gold printing that was really gorgeous. I really liked the labels, and they were actually transparent. You might think that labels were black, but they're not. They're transparent labels on a black bottle. And I think they look kind of good. But when you look at photographing things like that have gold and shiny elements in them, it can detract from the actual bottle, if you know what I mean. So you can see the reflections at the top. That's actually my window in my apartment in Dubai. Then you can see with the gold lettering, it's going into like different colors, although it's actually all one color. It looks almost like a little bit of ombre type thing, but it's not. And it's a little bit hard to read. So these are some of the things that you need to think about is when you're doing labels, is it easy for you to read the actual label when you're photographing it? It's not just about you looking at the bottle, handling the bottle, and your customers reading what's on the label. It's about how do they photograph, because we're living in a digital age. Everything is online, everything is on social media, and you're going to have to do lots of marketing when it comes to your products. So if you're going to be doing lots of marketing, you need to have fantastic photographs, and to be able to get fantastic photographs, you are going to need to have fantastic labels. So obviously the resolution needs to be high on the labels, and that's why I got mine done professionally. And then I stuck them on the bottles myself. So they were nice, I liked them, but I ended up changing them a little bit later on. If you look at now the next image, this is of my perfume. So I wanted to differentiate between my skincare, which is with the transparent labels that look black, and the image of the roll-on perfumes and the spray-on perfumes. So you've got the different Misfit, Bohemian, Boudoir, Rhapsody, and Burlesque fragrances. These are roll-on perfumes. And I wanted to differentiate between what's my perfume, what's my skincare range. And these I used gold labels. Of course, they were waterproof. They were beautiful. I wanted to go for the matte. I didn't go for glossy because that would have been even more difficult to photograph than these ones. What I did have a problem with is if you look at the bottom, because I never got samples, I made that mistake of the labels and I didn't put them in real life on the bottles. Because I was in a rush, because I was launching and I was doing a talk at the trade center. So I didn't have time. Time was of the essence. And if you look right at the bottom, you can barely read the like the ingredients. So, for instance, in the Misfit, you've got like honeysuckle, and you've got frangipani, frankincense and frangipani. And honeysuckle in the burlesque, you've got honeysuckle and jasmine, but you can't read that at the bottom of the label. It's tiny. So that's another thing you need to bear in mind. Now, I don't mind so much the shine on these labels. I think it makes it look quite elegant, and it gives it a 3D effect. So this is another example of a label that you can have, as long as you get them professionally printed from, obviously a printing company. And then you can stick it on the bottles yourself if you're planning to do the bottles yourself, if you've got your own bottles and you're not going with a filling and a packaging company, which I didn't back in those days. But then I wanted to launch, and I ended up just going with one fragrance, and I thought, I'm going to completely rebrand now. I'm going to keep my logo, but what I am going to do is I'm going to go with a packaging company, because I want them professionally done, and I want the bottle to not look a little bit amateurish, which I think the black bottles were. They were nice if you've got like an arts and craft type venue that you're selling them at and you don't want to scale up your brand. But when you want to look at scalability of a brand, it's always better to go with a company that can fulfill that for you, because, if I'm going to make 100,000 perfumes, I'm not going to be able to do that myself. Sticking labels on. Trust me, it's so time consuming. So I went with the packaging company. So I got a perfume house to develop my formula. So I handed over my formula to them. And then we gave that formula then to the packaging company, and they filled it. So what they did is they took receipt of the neat blend. They got the neat blend, and then they put the neat blend into, they diluted it and they conditioned it, and then they left it to macerate for about 6 weeks. People are always in a rush. I want my perfume now. I want it now. I want it now. But you have to let it macerate in the alcohol. So not just even the neat blend, in the alcohol. Please give it at least a month if time is of the essence, but 6 weeks generally is a good time frame for you to be able to do that. But if you look at the bottle was initially, the bottle was transparent, and my brand color, so I gave them the hex number, I think it's called, of my red, of the color red that I wanted. So they dyed it for me. Then they put this insert. The bottle actually came with this little insert, and this is like a little gold plaque that actually sticks on. And then it's gold foiling on the text. So that's printed on with gold foiling, and then it's on the back as well. All of the labeling information was on the bottom of the box, not at the back. And the cap was completely different. The cap didn't come with a bottle, because it never does. You'll get bottles and caps completely separately. So this just goes to show how you can make a very plain, standard, off-the-shelf perfume bottle look bespoke. And of course, it's called Drama Queen, so I wanted a crown on the top. So I absolutely love it. And it's very heavy. And I think when you're selling luxury perfumes as well, you need to look at the weightiness of the bottles and of the caps as well. Nobody wants cheap. And then the box as well was also done there. When it came to the bottles, I was allowed to get 100 only, but with the boxes, I had to do a minimum of 300. It's normally 500, but he did me a favor. So that's that one. The next one is an example of what I did for Carlsberg. So for the promotional fragrance of 1664 Blanc, a fragrance by Melanie Jane. And I was so lucky that they allowed me to put my name on the label. And this bottle, again, was dyed. Sorry if you heard the military aircraft going over my house right there. I live about 20 miles away from a military airbase, so it happens quite a lot. But if you look at this bottle, this started off, and it's actually, I talk about this in the video, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. But we dyed the bottle blue, and it was the colour of the beer bottle. So if you look at the bottle of the beer, 1664 Blanc by Kronenbourg, by Carlsberg, if you have a look at that, they're exactly the same colour blue. They're kept with a transparent cap because they needed to keep costs down. They actually wanted it a different colour, and we said, well, for your budget, you can't. The top is then crimped on. then they wanted this particular thing. Now, this is 3-color screen printing. The label, the white label that you can see, is actually printed. It's not stuck on. So they had the colors white, then the main text blue, and then they had the word fragrance in red. That's 3 colors. We ended up only charging them for 2 because we really wanted to have this fragrance with Carlsberg. We really wanted to win this project. So this is another example of creating something very small and making it look bespoke. And the label as well is the same label that they have on the beer bottle. So the shape, it was very specific. And if you look at the writing, these bottles are tiny. They're like probably the size of your middle finger. And the text at the bottom is tiny. But if you look at it, it's really readable. So that's incredibly important when you're getting things done. And the next one is I did a private label for a client in Nigeria. So my client actually started as a student, and she came to one of my live courses in Dubai. It was a week-long course, and she had an absolutely wonderful time, and she ended up enrolling onto the online diploma course. And then she approached me when I moved to France and asked me if I would help to design a couple of fragrances for a brand. So we scheduled a consultation, and after the consultation, she hired me then to create fragrances for her. She gave me a very specific brief. She knew exactly what she was talking about, and she knew exactly what it is that she wanted. But she obviously, I guided her somewhat as well. She was adamant that she wanted a fragrance with Oudin. And I had a fragrance in mind for her already. And then she really, really liked the fragrance that I created for Carlsberg. So she said if I could put like a twist on that, but with some rose and some musk, to make it so that it's not very citrusy, which the fragrance for Carlsberg is quite citrusy with very soft florals. So we did that, and I got samples for her, and she just loved the samples. She just fell in love with them, and we didn't even do any modifications. But the work for the design actually came from her, and she ended up doing this. Now, we had an in-house designer at the packaging and filling company, and she provided this, and she thought it looked quite amateurish, but I actually really quite liked it. So she gave it to us so that we could work on it and do some kind of variation. So she went from having a black label, having a transparent label with silver and gold, then going for a black bottle with black and silver text on it, then going for a transparent bottle with a transparent label. Not a label, actually, that would be like gold etching on the transparent bottle. So we were looking at different variations, and then we had to look then at the packaging, because you need to look at the boxes. And if you look at the boxes, you can see that we've got the quantity of 500, the type of black that it is, white printing with the label ingredient, with the label the labeling requirements that was going on the bottom of the bottle, so it didn't affect the aesthetics of the box, because the boxes are beautiful. And yeah, we put embossing on it as well, and the box was in black on the outside and on the inside. We had black foil on the outside as well, on the sides, at the 2 sides of the box that you can see there. That was really lovely. So really nice. And embossed with the logo on the top and at the front as well. And the same with the gold one. So the gold was exactly the same, but it was gold foil and embossing. And then if you look at the smaller, these are samples. She wanted to create some samples, perfume samples, 2 mils, to give to people. And you can see the outside of the sample box, and you can see the inside of it as well, which had her logo on there. Not embossed, not foiling with the black, because that would have been too costly. And then if you look at the final picture, this is how it ended up. The bottles we ended up going for transparent bottles with a very thick bottom. I love thick bottoms on my perfume bottles. They just give this impression of elegance and real weightiness. It really adds weight to a bottle. And when something is weighty, it feels more expensive and more luxurious. But you can see the two different types of colour. The patchouli and oud is more of an amber colour. And we actually coloured them as well. The rose and musk, we coloured that a little bit as well. Because that's another thing that you can actually do with your perfume if you don't like the colour of it. But you need to be careful. Please leave that up to an expert, because there's certain things that they will put in there, like they'll use a purple to make it into an amber colour, because it depends on the actual colour of the fragrance to begin with. So yeah, it ended up really gorgeous, really professional. She ended up going with the gold foiling, the gold embossing on the bottles directly. It looked gorgeous. You can see the colour of the liquid. But instead of going for a regular square top, we had a square bottle, rectangle, but square type bottle with a round top. And why not? And I think they look really gorgeous and really elegant. So this is a beautiful example of packaging and some of the elements that you need to consider when you are doing packaging for your own fragrances, and whether you're going to do samples or not. But I think the bottles look really fab. And also, if you look at my first one, the first one with the Melanie Jane brand, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. If you're going to be doing it yourself, it might look a little bit amateurish. But like I said before, doing it yourself, it's all very noble and everything. But if you have massive plans and very grand plans for your brand, then I would look at outsourcing the fragrance to a perfume house, whether you give them the formula or you get them to do it themselves. From their fragrance library, or if you that's it really. Basically, either you give them the formula and they can do it to the T, or they can take it and do some little tweaks and modifications, or you can just say, listen, this is my brief, this is what I want, you do it for me. That's what they will do. And you will also need to get a packaging company to do it for you, because it would be impossible for you to package in tens of thousands of bottles yourself. Certainly if you want to test the market and you want to start out like that, exactly like I did. I had some terrible labels in the beginning. I mean, I just printed them out myself, and then they weren't even waterproof, so like they would like fall off, they would come off, weren't sticking properly. You got it wet, which inevitably it's going to, because it's a fragrance or it's a skincare product, and it gets all smudgy, and it looks terrible. And you can't command a high price when you've got something that looks cheap and really made, and if it looks like it's been made in your kitchen, you can only charge really kitchen prices. But it's okay if you want to start and just like the local market, see people's reaction to the actual fragrance, and just explain to them, this is not going to be the final packaging. I just want to get and do some market research based on that. But then I would definitely, you want to scale up your business, you need a business plan, you need a business model that's scalable, and handing it over to people that have facilities to enable you to scale it up is imperative. So that's it. That's a very quick audio about packaging, and I hope that you like the images too. See you on the other side.